Now we're going to be creating some grass elements and some cloud elements using a different technique that we haven't seen before, but it's similar to the mandala technique. So we're going to create a new document, Command N, and we're going to make this 9 by 9 as well, same as before. And I'm going to start the way I normally start with the mandalas, with the pen tool, holding the shift key down and making a line that goes all the way across, deselecting, selecting the line, and then going to the properties panel and centering that line in the space, double clicking the rotate tool and making sure I make a copy of that so that it's the entire space is included in this little crosshair there and it's all centered. Then I go to my layers palette as we did before in the past, and this time I'm just going to use the drawing tool to make a path. And then we are going to select layer 1 like we normally do. Go to the effects, distort, transform, and then transform. Now this time, because I'm going to create grass and I would like the grass to be horizontally like focused, what I want to do is to use something called, well, just to whatever I draw here, I want it to kind of be repeated along the way here so that I don't have to draw as much. So what we're going to be doing, maybe we'll be making, let me see, 15 copies. So as soon as I hit 15, there are now 15 copies of this object all on top of each other. So if I were to move those 15 copies horizontally, you can kind of see that they are moving, in fact, horizontally, in fact, off the page. Actually, I want them to be spaced at around, I'm happy with like 9.28. I'm just going to hit, actually maybe like we'll make it 1-inch spacing. And I'm going to hit OK. So now at this point with this document, I'm going to turn off the paths so they're not super confusing. If I were to draw something like this, you can see that I've now got multiple things created. So I'm going to start by drawing some grass. So let's start here at the bottom. And I'm going to select my stroke weight and the type of drawing, and I'm going to just do one as an example. For grass, I want it to be more like that, like I want it to actually come to a point, and I want the stroke to be a little bit bigger. So here's like one piece of grass, here's another, here's another, here's, maybe that's too tall, here's another, and I know that I will be making these outlines as soon as I'm done so that we'll be able to actually see behind the grass. So the things that are in front might be bigger, so I might make the stroke bigger for the front ones, and then the things that are in back might be smaller. So I'll make the stroke smaller for the small ones in the back. And now I've got all my strokes here, and you can kind of see that makes for some nice grass. So the next thing I want to do is make some clouds. So let's stylize some clouds. I'm going to just pick a different stroke weight, and I'm just going to start by making a spiral. That looks pretty good, and I'm just going to make another spiral. Good, and then I'm going to just start here and make another spiral. So that kind of like, to me, feels like a little bit cloudy, right? Clouds, and you can kind of see the nice part about this technique is you can see when if it overlaps. So there we go. Being careful. And again, the idea is we are making a coloring book, so we want these clouds to function as things that we can draw into. So here's a problem because I should have started on this side. Let's see. How about like this one? There we go. Just making some closed-in shapes so that they feel like you can color them in. Again, we're always thinking like, how do you close the shapes in so that you can actually color these things in. Don't like that one. Okay. So that gives us some clouds to work with. So at this point, we are going to select everything, and really it's just this and this that we drew. And then we're going to go to Object, Expand Appearances. And finally, we're going to, and you can kind of see that these are outlines and that these are outlines as well. So let's go ahead and change these guys into strokes. So let's select all of these. So currently we've got this selected plus this. So we're going to have to double click into this area and then select these separately. Let's see. Oh, they're all grouped. I'm going to go up a couple of layers here. I'm going to click on one, and what we're going to do is ungroup everything. We're just going to have to do this a couple times to get rid of all the groups that have been created. Okay, ungroup. There we go. So now you can see every single path has got its own like little space in the layer. So now we can select just these guys. And I'm going to now change the mode to an outline mode just by flipping these. And you can see now they're outlined. The problem is we can see through these, and that's because our fill is not yet turned into a white fill, which is what we want. And now you can kind of see that now we have some grass. And in fact, if we want to, we could take this grass. I'm selecting all of it. And we can even change the stroke weight type so that it looks more interesting. So let's see. Not liking that. I'm not liking that one. How's that one? That looks kind of interesting. I could actually, that could work. Maybe making the stroke a little smaller. Again, this is all just based on like what you're looking at. Let's make the stroke a little bit smaller. Points. I think I'm just going to stick with uniform. I kind of like that and make the stroke 2 points nice and thick so that we can easily color into this element. All right, and then with our clouds, I think these clouds are good in the way that they look at this point. So in order to use this, because I've ungrouped it and all I have to do is select just the grass, and I'm going to group this grass, object group, and I'm going to group these clouds, object group, so that when I take these and put them into my document, they will just be a single group. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'll take this, I'm going to go to Edit Copy or Command C, and now I'm going to move to my area here, and I'm going to Command V, and I'm going to put them in the foreground. Now the foreground elements, I know I'm going to make much bigger, so I'm just going to take them and zooming out a little bit so you can see how much I expand these. I'm holding the Shift key down so that the expansion is done evenly. There we go. Holding the Shift key down. And now these are going to be in the forefront. And then what we're going to do is take this, make a copy of it, or Option drag it to make a copy. And now I'm going to hold the Shift key down and make them smaller. And I'm going to send this to the back. And you can see how it just popped to the back here. That's our grass in back. And you can see now it's behind the blue rectangle or the blue shape there. I'm going to just bring it down a little bit. Okay, and I don't want this rectangle, so I don't need that. But you can see it's also behind the sun. So we kind of don't want that, but I'm going to move the sun to the bottom layer. So the sun now is the thing that's farthest away. I'm going to take this grass in the front, and so that it doesn't look exactly like the grass in the back, make this grass actually taller in the back, and make it a little bit bigger because we don't want it too small. There we go. But this grass in the front, maybe I'll make it shorter. I'm also going to use the properties tool to kind of like reflect it. So you hit the reflect button and now the grass is going a different way. So it feels just like a little bit different, right? So here's what we've got so far when we're zoomed in. Now you might say, well, you wish you could kind of see how this looks without like this edge, like you want to actually crop it in. If you go to the view option and go to trim view, that will actually get rid of everything that shouldn't be seen. And you can see right now, this is what we've got. It's pretty cool and clearly adult coloring book oriented. We've got our sun, we've got our elephants, and we've got our foreground grass. You can move these around until you're happy so that you don't occlude any of the image of the elephant. I kind of like the way I had it here. You can move the elephant specifically up or down so that you don't see this bottom part of this grass. So I can maybe move the elephant down. Oops. So it's like this. This elephant maybe wants to be a little bigger. Both the elephants could be a little bit bigger. And so this gives you that opportunity to kind of like, modify things after the fact. Again, we're looking at the trim view here, just so we can see, and that looks pretty good. Then this, we want this to be a little lower in the sky. You can kind of see how that's working. Oop. Keep double clicking here. There we go. And then finally what we're going to do, I'm going to go back to the trim view, keeps jumping out of that. Then I'm finally going to go to, maybe move this over a little bit, the clouds. And so I'm going to go back to my clouds area, pick those up, Command C, and then Command V. Make sure that they're all the way in the bottom, right? So you have this group here. Let's go ahead and call it clouds so we don't get confused. And we're going to put it way at the bottom. And because they're clouds, we're going to just make a bunch of them. I'll just option drag them to make another set. And maybe we'll also flip it around using the properties tab so that we have some differentiation. And this is our final result. Definitely adult coloring book, definitely interesting. Obviously there are things that I wish maybe I could do. Maybe the sky would be a little busy. Maybe I could put a little less grass. Maybe the sun itself could have less information on the inside. These are all things that are like things that you could decide on, but you can kind of see that just doing just some really simple tracing of images and then utilizing some of the effects that you worked on in the class can put together a really nice composition. Now you can imagine how you could use this technique for creating the grass and the clouds to create things like waves. You can create dunes, you could create different hills and mountains, because once it's reflected, it's easy enough to see where you've drawn and then continue drawing in areas that you haven't drawn. So you can kind of see how this could work. Hopefully this helps you a little bit. And again, this will be what you'll be exporting for the final design. And again, just to finish off, let's go ahead and go to export, export as, and we will save this as finished JPEG, and we will use finished ELEPH elephant, and I will save it to my desktop, and we're going to use the same settings as before and hit OK. And now when we go to our desktop, after it's done exporting, you'll see that, well, that's not what we want. Oh my goodness, we want it definitely trimmed to the artboard. So let's try that again. File, export, export as. And this time what we're going to make sure we do is not just export it with nothing checked. We definitely want to select JPEG, but we need to use the artboard that we're selecting. We want to only export the artboard and not everything outside of the artboard. So we're going to select artboard. Since in our case we only have one, so we're going to just select all. Normally you would just use range if you had multiple ones and pick the right one. Hit export after we've named this. So we're going to try this again. Elephant. To export, and we're going to make sure everything is selected here that we have. Hit OK, and now if we actually go to our area, to our desktop, we're going to see that we in fact have exported the elephant. And remember, we've got our trims, everything is correct, 300 DPI, and this is now ready to put into a book form and send off to be created into a coloring book. I hope you were able to follow along, and I hope you got some new techniques out of this tutorial. Thanks, bye.